Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdog's Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, today we're looking at a couple of stories that involve Bigfoot, but both accounts are, one has a suddenly appearing Bigfoot in a cage, and the other involves basically aliens, reptilians, and Bigfoot as well in a city under the ground. Either way, the first article we'll be reading is Gray Hairy Cryptid Biped Manifests and Vanishes in Locked Rabbit Cage, and we're about to read exactly what the witness saw and how it affected her, folks, because she and her son can't explain it at all. She stepped back, unable to comprehend how the creature had gotten into the cage, since there was no apparent hole or opening visible anywhere, and the door was securely closed. Kalama, Chile, March 16, 2002, 10 o'clock p.m. As you can see, folks, this brief blurb and the location tells you that this happened over in another country, but the account is both similar and far different from other Bigfoot accounts, because this Bigfoot just appeared in this rabbit cage of all things. And this woman, and as I said, her son, can't explain this incident at all. Either way, let's read this story now and hear the witness's full story. A woman was watching television alone in her bedroom when she began hearing noises coming from outside. At first, she thought it was her dogs playing with some empty cans, but the noises kept getting louder, prompting her to go outside to investigate. Once outside, she was stunned to see an unknown upright creature that had somehow entered the rabbit cage and was attacking the animals, which were making loud, terrible screams. Thinking initially that it was one of the dogs, she approached the cage, but soon realized it was a gray, hairy, hunched-over creature moving frantically inside. She stepped back, unable to comprehend how the creature had gotten into the cage, since there was no apparent hole or opening visible anywhere, and the door was securely closed. So, what was this creature, folks? It's been said before in Native American lore that Bigfoot is a spirit. And we'll learn soon why, perhaps, folks, because this entity just vanishes without a trace, folks. But this entity was clearly in the cage. It was attacking the rabbits in it. The question is how it got in there, folks. And as I said, we'll theorize about that after I read the rest of the article. But I'll tell you, folks, my ideas are on the outer limits of what you can really believe here, folks. Even though it does make sense. Either way, let's finish off this experiencer's story. Frantically, she ran inside her home and called for her son. They both rushed outside, but the creature had mysteriously vanished. Disturbed, they could not understand how it had escaped, since the door to the rabbit cage remained securely locked. After a thorough examination, they found only a small round hole in the wire, just several centimeters wide, not large enough for a creature estimated to be about 70 to 80 centimeters tall. Several of the rabbits were found injured, and one was dead. So, very strange, folks. Now, you're probably thinking that I'm going to say that this Bigfoot shrank down and went through this little hole in the cage, but no, folks. It's a possibility, because some people do say that Bigfoot is a spirit, and one of the abilities that people say spirits have is, well, I guess, size changing. Think about, well, fairy lore, folks, or even Native American lore where the Bigfoot originates, that sometimes these spirits can change size. So it does make sense, but no, folks. Even though the article doesn't say that this creature is a Bigfoot, it sure sounds like one. So I'm thinking maybe this Bigfoot wasn't alone. What I'm trying to say, folks, is that I think that this hairy hominid, well, he and maybe others of its group were pranking these people here. What I'm thinking is that maybe two Bigfoots, one crawled into this cage and the other, well, shut it and locked it. And then this Bigfoot made a big rowdy noise and the woman came out and she was frightened and ran off. Now, what I'm thinking here, folks, is that the other Bigfoot let the Bigfoot in the cage out, and then they ran off. This was all to just basically have fun and prank these humans, because it's been said that in some Bigfoot accounts that the Bigfoot is basically messing with people. So is that a possibility? Maybe. Either way, the source of this information comes from Kalama UFO Center Albert S. Rosales, meaning that basically Albert S. Rosales and this Columbia UFO Center, well, were the ones who basically first, well, made the public aware of this particular story, folks. And not a bad one, and it does sound like it is a Bigfoot story, folks, or at least a hairy hominid one. Either way, let's move on to the next article. Splunkers encounter blue-green humanoids, glass-like city in Arkansas cave. It's a very strange story, folks, that also involves Bigfoot as well, and even, well, I guess serpent or lizard people. So, let's get into this story, folks, and read exactly what the experiencers, well, had to deal with. Let's read this brief blurb from it, and we'll get the full story afterwards. They were led to underground cities populated by entities that include serpent-like creatures and large, hairy bipeds. Using an elevator-like device, they were transported to a glass-like city. That was the brief excerpt from the actual story, folks. And as you can see, there are alien humanoids, hairy hominids like Bigfoot, and lizard men. This information comes from Blowing Cave, Arkansas, 1966, late afternoon. And this information is very, very interesting. Now, like the last story, folks, this account basically has these people come in contact with these entities that leaves the witnesses truly bewildered and amazed. But afterwards, like the last story, there's no real explanation to exactly what actually happened, or even if this actually did occur. But there are other similarities as well, folks, and we'll get to that similarity after we finish off this article. Several spelunkers, including George D. White, were exploring the cave when they spotted a light at the end of the tunnel. As they approached it, White noticed a narrow crevice just big enough for him to squeeze through, where he found artificial steps. He called to the others, and they climbed through the opening. The tunnel expanded, and they suddenly emerged into a large 20 by 20 foot corridor. The walls and floors were smooth, and the ceiling had a curved dome shape. Soon they encountered blue-skinned but otherwise human-like individuals. The strangers communicated with the witnesses, telling them that they possessed instruments capable of measuring people's emotions. They learned that the tunnels extended for miles. They were led to underground cities populated by entities that include serpent-like creatures and large, hairy bipeds. Using an elevator-like device, they were transported to a glass-like city. Sounds all very sci-fi, doesn't it, folks? Or like something you'd read from basically a classic strange tale from the 30s or 40s. Something you'd see made by, like the creator of Conan the Barbarian, Robert E. Howard, or other contributors to strange tales like H.P. Lovecraft. This sounds like something you'd read from one of their stories, doesn't it, folks? But there is a strange, realistic feel to this story that makes me think that there's more to it than it being just some sort of tall tale or hoax, folks. So, like other stories we've read about before, folks, of people encountering these bizarre entities and underground cities, do you think that these entities are real? If they are, why hasn't anyone been able to prove that they exist? No one knows, but there's certainly something to be said about maybe that they're so powerful that they can just basically hide themselves quite easily from us. That is also a possibility. Either way, folks, let's finish off this article first, and then we'll talk a little more about this. Shortly after this incident, White reportedly returned to the cave and was never seen again. That is indeed interesting. The source of this information is witness Richard Toronto, who apparently gave his story to Albert S. Roselius to basically print in a book, folks. At least I'm guessing, because it has Richard Toronto and Albert S. Roselius. I doubt Robert S. Roselius was there, folks. Either way, apparently he interviewed Richard Toronto to basically hear his side of the story. So, very interesting. Of course, folks, there's a note as well. Over time, I have received several reports of humanoid amphibians and reptilians that were seen or encountered in caves and caverns in Arkansas and the Ozarks. Indeed, very interesting, folks. Indeed, there are several accounts of people seeing these amphibian and reptilian-like cryptids, folks. And I have to say, these entities remind me of the Loveland Frogman, who is in the same category. Even though the Loveland Frogman was reportedly about 3 feet tall, but did wield a magic wand too, which is something we see basically in other accounts. Not so much magic wands, but in these various encounters of these alien beings using these long metal rods that can, well, some people have speculated could be similar to basically what people think of as magic wands. At least they're, or are, made of some sort of advanced technology that allow these entities to do things that we can't. So, very interesting, folks. But don't forget the hairy hominids that were also encountered down below Arkansas as well, folks. So, do you think they have any relationship to the one down in Chile that appeared in that rabbit cage? I mean, these entities appear and disappear at will, seemingly. So, maybe there is some sort of relationship. Either way, folks, we're at the end. So, please go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics They're Bad For You. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Hit the part of the bell that will give you all future notifications. Make sure you're still subscribed. And please, share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Till next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.